Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. You know, the Most High really, truly is working, and it is up to us to recognize it. This government is still partially shut down. I want you to know this is the third time in 2026 they have failed to fully fund the government. This is the third time. And they're not going to fund it because Congress and the Senate left. They're not even in DC. So we're going to talk about the partial shutdown that is still going strong and how America is not funding, not all of the agencies are going to be funded. And we're going to talk about which one of those agencies, as well as, hearing people speak about this partial shutdown. Now, this is really significant because we know we're in the final days of this Gentile world. And the fact that we are still in the first quarter of the year and they can't even sit down and agree to fund this government is unprecedented. This has never happened before. Usually, we always seen them fund the government at the last minute. Well, they're not even doing that anymore. They're not even doing that anymore. And that says a lot about the state and the times that we are in. Oh, yeah, Babylon is definitely not the same. And y'all, the fight is over ICE and funding the Department of Homeland Security. That is what the big showdown is about now. So they are not shutting down all agencies, but it is still going to make a huge impact. It really, truly is. And everything is not getting funded. And it's like any other shutdown, you got a lot of people that are not going to get paid. So the partial shutdown, the biggest one it's impacting is the Department of Homeland Security because Congress will not approve a resolution because they are attempting to defund ICE. That's what they're attempting to do. So, what's impacted? Transportation. So, they are expecting flights to be delayed. There's going to be a lot of travel delays going on. TSA agents are not getting paid. So, they're going to have to work once again without pay. Some agencies are going to have staff shortages. They're anticipating long lines, flight delays, potential operational strains during peak travel times, like spring break. And they're anticipating travel issues during the World Cup. And we know the World Cup is going to be here in the US, in fact, in my state. And who else? The Coast Guard. The Coast Guard will be impacted. So they're saying the personnel will be impacted. And that's another agency that is going to be disrupted and people are not going to get paid. Cybersecurity and infrastructure security. So those employees will be working without pay. So this is going to impact them, taking care of cyber attacks, because these people will not be getting paid. So we'll see how that goes. FEMA is another agency that will still be required to work, but will not get paid. Who else? ICE and CBP. So Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Customs Border Protection will be operating without pay. So it's going to have a lot, because after a while, when these folks don't get paid, they're going to start calling out. That's what happened the last time. It's going to happen this time too. So 90 to 95% of the Department of Homeland Security are required to work, even if funding has lapsed, which means they will be working without pay until further notice. So, I realize we have a lot of people within our community that work for federal government. So it's not just these agencies, but even other non-Department of Homeland Security agencies could also be impacted. So hopefully, I know I have some subscribers that work for the federal government. So, I hope you can get by if you are impacted without pay. It's really tough. People, just like the last time, fell behind on rent and mortgages, car loans. Folks ended up in, food lines. It really got bad. It really, truly did. All right, y'all. Let me share my screen. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
A partial government shutdown kicked in for the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, on February 14, 2020, after Congress failed to pass funding before the midnight deadline, marking the third funding lapse of early 2026 under President Trump. The standoff. Democrats demanded reforms to rein in ICE and CBP operations like agent ID requirements, limits on mass body cams, and use of force rules following January shootings of U.S. citizens Alex Purdy and Renee Nicole Good during enforcement actions in Minneapolis. Republicans in the White House resisted, calling it a weakening of border security. Lawmakers recessed until February 2023 with no deal in sight.
A lot of questions about the potential government shutdown on the horizon and what is going on with that. Because this is, as former President Joe Biden would have said, a BFD. And not simply because a government shutdown is always a BFD, but because of what it signifies in this moment. So a government shutdown happens when the government doesn't have funding. And that's different. I've talked to you 1,000 times about the debt ceiling. These are not the same thing. It's all about money, but it's about money in very different ways. What has happened is that the fiscal year for the United States government runs out at the end of September 30th. That's the end of the fiscal year. Now, theoretically, Congress is supposed to have passed a budget. Is supposed to have passed appropriations, of course, long ago before this, not now. They're supposed to have done it long ago. But Congress always these days has a problem passing appropriations bills. Now, when they pass appropriations bills, Remember, there are 12 of them. It's not just one bill. There are 12 bills that correspond to each of the appropriations subcommittees. So there are appropriations committees in each house of Congress, and then there are subcommittees in that. And those subcommittees then take a look at their numbers and say what they're willing to pay, and take a look at all the caps and the things they have to do and so on when they're putting together their appropriations measures.
I believe somebody knows something that we don't know about this government shutdown. Now, before I go on, I need y'all to make sure y'all watch this video all the way to the end. I need y'all to make sure y'all share this video and make sure y'all save it so y'all can come back later and say, Marie told us so. Is y'all woke? Are y'all paying attention to what's really going on? See, I hope that y'all are spiritually awake, because the Bible has already told us in Revelation that people will starve to death in the land of plentiful. Now, a lot of people say that he meant that in a spiritual level, but I also think that he means that in a literal level. It's happening right now. People are going without in the land of plentiful. See, a lot of y'all playing while other people stocking up. Y'all ain't paying attention when y'all go in these stores. Y'all see all the waters gone. I went to try to go buy some waters the other day. Went hardly no packs of waters in the store. A lot of the goods are gone. They done cut the food stamps off. Well, most people can't even afford to go buy groceries. Now, y'all do know that everything has a domino effect. I hope y'all with me. We don't know how long the government gonna be shut down. We don't know if the bank's gonna shut down eventually. We don't know if the store's gonna close up eventually. We don't know if we may lose our jobs. And I see a lot of people walking around like they can't be touched, like they can't be affected, like we don't need to be getting prepared right now. Are y'all paying attention to what's going on? They ain't put no time limit on how long this government is going to be shut down. The people in the military wasn't even being paid. Don't even know, since they started back getting paid, how long they going to get paid. We need to be worried about us down here at the bottom, because the people at the top, they gonna eat. They got it together. They done stocked up. I trust in God 100%, and I know that God do not want us to live in fear, but he gave us 5 senses. And I want to know, is y'all woke? Is y'all paying attention? Is y'all stocking up? Are y'all ready for what might come? Y'all drop in the comments and tell me.
So we're in a partial government shutdown. Again. Who forgot to feed the adults in Congress? Relax. DHS has everything under control. Probably. Somewhere. Are ICE agents still working if they're not getting paid? Of course, nothing stops the mission. So it's volunteer enforcement now. It's not about money. It's about destiny. That's not comforting. Why would I be upset? I'm making record profits during the chaos. Disaster capitalism with a side of patriotism. Republicans are winning the midterms. You'll see. Polls say otherwise. Polls are fake. Ballots are flexible. That sentence should concern you. We need voter ID nationwide. That requires Congress. Details. And what's happening with the Epstein files? Next question. Interesting timing. I'm just saying, some things are better left unopened. Like transparency? If you criticize the leader, you're the problem. So disagreement equals exile now? Unity through obedience. That's not unity. That's customer service for authoritarianism. We've got shutdowns, culture wars, secret documents, and unpaid agents enforcing policies. But sure, everything is totally normal. Drop your thoughts. Are we watching politics or a reality show with nukes?
It's official. Donald Trump and Republicans have shut down parts of the federal government once again. Why has this happened? It's because Democrats have demanded bold, meaningful, and dramatic change to ICE before any DHS funding bill can move forward. But Republicans have decided that they would rather shut down FEMA, shut down TSA, and shut down the Coast Guard before reining ICE in. We believe that your taxpayer dollars should be used to make your life more affordable, not to brutalize or kill American citizens. We are in this fight until we win this fight.
A partial government shutdown is entering its third day. Democrats refusing to fund the Department of Homeland Security over President Trump's ongoing immigration enforcement policies after 2 American citizens were shot dead in Minneapolis.
We've drawn a hard line in the sand on behalf of the American people.
Among the reforms Democrats want, a uniform code of conduct for ICE operations, that ICE agents stop wearing face masks and obtain warrants signed by a judge before making arrests. The president has not said he'll make any concessions.
We'll see what happens. We always have to protect our law enforcement.
DHS is a sprawling department with more than 200,000 employees. It includes ICE, but also other critical agencies like FEMA, the Coast Guard, and the TSA. Those employees will be required to work without pay during a shutdown, though ICE has already received $75 billion last year through what President Trump called his big, beautiful bill.
The Department of Homeland Security is officially in a partial shutdown. Funding expired at midnight today, and Congress left town without a deal. This is now the second funding lapse in just 2 weeks, all centered around immigration enforcement. Departments are demanding reforms to ICE and Border Patrol after deadly federal operations in Minnesota, including required body cameras, visible identification, banning masks, and mandating judicial warrants for arrests on private property. And like I've said before, even though this fight is about immigration enforcement, ICE and Border Patrol won't really feel much of a thing. They already received billions in last year's spending package, enough to carry them through the rest of Trump's term. But agencies like TSA, FEMA, the Coast Guard, and Cybersecurity, they're going to feel it. Furloughs, limited operations, employees working without pay. Senate Democrats blocked a full-year funding bill. They also blocked a short-term extension. Congress isn't scheduled to return until February 23rd, the day before the State of the Union. Negotiations are still technically ongoing, but right now, both sides are dug in, and DHS is officially shut down.
Democrats here in Washington are refusing to fund the agency unless it changes how it conducts its immigration crackdown. Part of the outcry has been the agency's treatment of U.S. citizens.
My name is George Redez. I was born and raised here in Ventura, California. I'm 26 years old, and I am an Iraq combat veteran.
My name is Alia Rahman. I was born in northern Wisconsin, grew up in Bangladesh. I now live in Minneapolis.
My name is Gina Christ, and I live in St. Louis Park, Minnesota.
I was going to work like normal. I show up, ICE is there. There's kind of like a roadblock. I get out, I identify myself or that I'm a U.S. citizen, that I'm just trying to get to work.
So I came upon a traffic jam that I pretty quickly realized was ICE.
I was on my way to work, and I honestly thought, I'm going to observe, or, I'm going to, try to help slow something down.
I'm trying to leave.
I'm getting ready to leave, and they're surround my car, start banging on it, start shouting these contradictory orders.
I was told, move! I will break your effing window! And, I couldn't get a clear answer to where they wanted me to move to.
There's people all around my car, and so I have both hands up on either side of my face. I have both hands up on either side of my face, and you cannot hear me.
Very quickly, I was pulled out of that car. I fell twice. Once right outside the car that you can see. Once behind the car, face down.
An ICE agent breaks my driver's side window, glass, reaches in, opens my door, pulls me out of the door, tells me to get on the ground, zip ties me, and now gas, flashbangs, pepper spray.
Even though I was giving them no reason, they still felt the need to, one agent kneel on my back and another agent kneel on my neck. And during that time, I'm just pleading with them that I couldn't breathe.
I am disabled. I am autistic. I have a brain injury. And when I hit that ground face first, I just experienced shooting pain through my neck, through my head. My vision became blurry.
There was no need. They detoured to grab me. They could have continued to drive. Their cars were past my car. They passed my car, jumped out of their cars, apprehended me, and kept going.
What happened to me in detention was far worse than what happened to me on camera. What happened to me in detention was a complete stripping of my rights.
Once I was kind of detained, it was very like, do you have water? Are you comfortable? How's the heat? You know, it was a very schizophrenic experience. And I spent an enormous amount of time, most of my time in my head, trying to figure out what was really, really going on.
I was in isolation. I was in basically this concrete cell. I was stripped naked in like a hospital gown. They leave the lights on 24/7.
Nobody knew I was there. I wasn't told where I was going. I wasn't given a phone call. And I'm going unconscious. And I'm wondering, is this it? They call us bodies. Is this it for me? Am I going to die?
DHS came out and they said that I was violent and that I assaulted agents. Why lie when it's on video of everything that happened? Why lie?
I mean, this is insane. You know, this isn't anything that could minutely be referred to as a couple of bad apples, you know, which is, you know, what we heard for years and years and years.
I want to live in a country where people who are enforcing the law treat people humanely.
In response to our request, DHS sent a statement about all three of these cases. Here are some key quotes. The agency insisted if a U.S. citizen is arrested, it is because they have obstructed or assaulted law enforcement. In many cases, even after arrest, charges are never filed. They were not filed in these cases. The agency said there can be myriad reasons for that, but it did not provide any of those reasons. William, some of the statement they sent us is contrary to the evidence that we have seen. For example, the agency referred to Alia Rahman as an agitator. We know she was on her way to work. There's no other evidence about her. DHS added that George Retes, in their opinion, the veteran, they said he refused to move his car. The video shows him moving his car. I raise this because, as Tom Homan says, he's de-escalating in Minnesota. Right now, DHS is digging in on blaming Americans without evidence.
Lisa, you were at two of those hearings on Capitol Hill this week where ICE and CBP officials were asked about some of these things. How did they respond?
Well, the leaders of ICE and Customs and Border Protection did say some things like pepper spraying inside of a car or using a canister as a weapon are wrong unless there's no other defense for an officer. But they didn't admit any specific mistakes, and they didn't address any idea of systemic problems here. Specifically relevant to our story, the ICE director, acting director Todd Lyons, was asked about the detention of and the treatment of American citizens.
Under Title VIII, no U.S. citizen is subject to civil immigration enforcement, and that just doesn't happen. There are multiple safeguards in that way, and if a U.S. citizen is detained in the course of an immigration investigation, they're quickly released. We don't take action on American citizens.
But the interviews we just said counter that. That's just flatly not true. You know, we know that CBP has repeatedly acted against American citizens, and some of these are just a few of the stories. There are more. Alia Rahman said her point is, if this is how U.S. citizens like her were treated, what about people who are not citizens?
Right. And another part of the issue here that people may not realize is that people who go to court with these cases, they don't have the same rights that we would expect. Explain.
This is because of federal law, a specific statute, in fact, about civil rights when they're violated. Here, I want to take a look at this. This is a section of code about who you can sue for civil rights violations. It says those acting under color of statute or ordinance, meaning law enforcement, acting for the government. But look at this. It says if that government is a state or territory. So, William, it does not say the United States itself. And because of this, courts have said there's a very narrow lane that you can use to sue officers of the United States. This is not a hard fix. It's something that people want to include in negotiations underway right now over DHS. But talking to some experts, especially some experts from Cato, a man named Mike Fox, he told me he thinks that what Democrats are asking for actually may have less impact than changing this.
If I tell you you can't wear masks, but nothing happens when you do, what does that do? That's why it's so fundamentally important that Congress add a component that allows you to sue for constitutional violations and then precludes the actors, the government agents, from benefiting from immunity.
Advocates are pushing for this to be part of the talks, but my reporting is there's no evidence that it is.
We have some big news right now. Washington is in chaos as the government shuts down in 2 days and Republicans don't have the votes. Here's what you need to know if the government does shut down. Number one, federal employees will be furloughed. All non-essential employees who still have a job under this administration will be furloughed without pay. Now, essential employees like TSA officers, for example, and air traffic controllers will remain on the job, but thousands of other federal employees won't receive pay. Number two, it'll impact Social Security and Medicare benefits the longer it goes. Now, your benefits won't necessarily be disrupted, but it'll be harder to apply for new benefits, for example. Number three, national parks will close if they have not already closed. Now, a number of cuts have led to national parks reducing hours or closing days. Well, under a government shutdown, parks will likely close completely. Number four, agencies like the EPA will not be able to conduct toxic waste inspections, for example. Number five, while TSA agents are essential employees, you may have situations where airports are understaffed and you're waiting for longer times. Now, this is just some of the impacts. I'm going to do a full breakdown on my Substack shortly, linked to my bio. Be sure to
All right, y'all. This really looks bad, don't it? Well, you know, everything happening to them, what they don't realize happened to us first. We got wrongfully detained by your quote unquote cops out here. We got accused of crimes we didn't commit. The video, when they would have body cams on, would show one thing, but they would write something entirely different in police reports. And now y'all are experiencing that. The video shows one thing, and what ICE is writing down is something totally different. Now you know how it feels. The sad part is, if you would have just cared when it was happening to us, it might not be happening to you today. And see, I got a problem with protesting because something happened to you, but you were not willing to give us the benefit of the doubt. And that is the truth. So now that we are taking a humble seat back, and these folks are out there in the middle of this stuff, now they are feeling they're not speaking anything that did not happen to us. Not one single thing. That's all I'm saying. You know, that's all I'm saying. So, y'all, if any developments change, I will let you know about this government shutdown that, you know, they were supposed to fund, I think, like around the 31st of January, and they failed. And then it was another time, the beginning of February, and it failed again. So this is number 3. This is the 3rd time they have failed to fully fund the government. 3rd time. So we shall see. You know, yeah, I agree. You know, a big distraction from the Epstein files because, you know, Pam Bondi just released more files. So, yeah, it is a distraction. One of many ancestral shadows. Yeah, them 2A Gadsden flag bearers are awfully quiet. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Not only are they quiet, the funny part is they have been denying a lot of stuff online. You know, people have been really coming down on MAGA recently, you know, acquiescing. Yes. And you know what? The thing is, I think after Donald Trump has done so much damage, it's going to be a long time before Republicans win anything. I really, truly believe that. I really believe that. Quantum Solace, thank you for your super chat. What's utterly disturbing to me is that AD3 act as though our atrocities never happened. True. This would make their sentiment of how they are being treated null and void from our perspective. Yes, I definitely agree. And thank you for your support for my channel. I deeply appreciate it. Yeah, that's where I got a problem. Y'all never care. And then when it happens to you, you want everybody to care. You want everybody to get out in the streets and join you. You want everybody, you know, I yeah, I see a lot of stuff that they're doing is wrong. But you know, we don't have anything to do with ICE. We are citizens. I'm sorry these things are happening, but a lot of these Latinos voted for Donald Trump. They voted for their own demise. And a lot of these immigrants, they come here and they hate on us. So, that being said, nothing good is coming your way now. Nothing good. Eventually, many of you are going to have to get out of this land, whether you want to or not. It's not going to be a choice in the matter soon. You're going to really be completely forced off the land. That's right, Loretta. They're going to be forced off of the land. And it's not going to be anything you can do. And right now, the way Donald Trump got these laws set up and disregarding many of the laws, like, these immigrants supposed to get due process, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And many of you are not getting that now. And that's not going to change under a Donald Trump presidency. That's why many people are saying you would be better off just self-deporting out of here. Because if ICE catches up to you, it's going to be far worse. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. I deeply appreciate it. I see I have a third one in here. Hold on one second. One of many ancestral shadows. Thank you for another super chat. Pam Bondi and Megan Kelly are defending their own, no matter how insidiously heinous. Yeah, they are. Yeah, I did see that hearing that Pam Bondi did. Boy, she didn't sound like an attorney to me at all. She really didn't. She sounded like a Karen in her testimony. That's what she sounded like to me. Sound like Karen. But I'm not surprised. These are the people that Donald Trump has picked. Rita Williams, thank you so much for your super chat. Trump only care about the rich people. That is it and all. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, all he cares about is his billionaire buddies. That is absolutely correct. And thank you for your support for my channel. Yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about these people. He don't even care about all the MAGA people. He's screwing them over too. And they're dumb enough to sit there and say they would vote for him again, and he's actually screwing their butts over as well. And I definitely don't feel sorry for them. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll be back with more topics. So have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Shalom, family.